I'm Angi Gonzalez with the New York 1 Minute. Two men convicted of assassinating Malcolm X have their records wiped clean. 83-year-old Muhammad Aziz was in court and said he's glad to finally see the truth come out. The other man, Khalil Islam, died in 2010, his son saying it was bittersweet to not have his father by his side. Governor Kathy Hochul says she wants workers back in the office starting in January. She says it's essential to both the city and state's economies in helping recover from the pandemic. The Biden administration pledges to buy 10 million treatment courses of Pfizer's COVID antiviral pill if it gets approved. The drug maker says the pill can reduce hospitalization and death by nearly 90% for those at high risk. State lawmakers are pushing for nearly $1 billion more in federal rent assistance. And a week before Thanksgiving, MACY'S unveils its holiday window displays. Details on our top stories are coming up, but first, a quick check of your forecast. Police are searching for a man involved in an anti-Semitic attack. This is the person that police are looking for. Investigators say that he threw the 34-year-old victim's yarmulke off of his head in Manhattan. It happened at around 2 on Thursday afternoon at Broadway and West 3rd Street in Greenwich Village. Police say that when the victim demanded his yarmulke back, that it was thrown back and an anti-Semitic statement was made. He was not injured. The NYPD Hate Crime Task Force is investigating. Two of the men convicted in the assassination of civil rights activist Malcolm X more than 50 years ago have their convictions thrown out. A Manhattan judge cleared the names of Muhammad Aziz and the late Khalil Islam. Prosecutors and lawyers for the two men say that a new investigation found new evidence indicating that the men were not involved in the killing. It was also determined that authorities withheld some of what they knew. Aziz and Islam both maintained their innocence from day one.
I am very glad that my family, my friends, and the attorneys who have worked and supported me over these years are finally seeing the truth that we have all known.
It brings only a little satisfaction because I was in my mother's belly when he was taken. So for 25 years there was no father-son connection except through, visitation rooms. It almost sounds casual to me that he's being exonerated. So the great pleasure is not there because he's not here with me.
I apologize for what were serious, unacceptable violations of law and the public trust.
The third man, Mujahid Abdul Halim, admitted to gunning down Malcolm X and said that the other two were not involved. Through a relative, he declined to comment on Thursday. He was released on parole in 2010. Aziz and Islam were both paroled in the 1980s. Islam died in 2009. Oklahoma's governor has commuted the death sentence of Julius Jones. He was scheduled to be executed Thursday afternoon. Jones was convicted of first-degree murder for the 1999 killing of businessman Paul Howell. The governor commuted the sentence to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The state's Pardon and Parole Board recommended that decision in a 3-1 vote earlier this month. Jones has declared his innocence for more than 20 years now. His case has drawn widespread attention after being profiled in a documentary back in 2018. Stephen Avery, the subject of Netflix's Making a Murderer, is not going to be getting out of jail anytime soon. The Wisconsin Supreme Court rejected a request to review his conviction. Avery is serving a life sentence for the 2005 killing of photographer Teresa Halbach. He's been fighting for years to overturn that conviction. Creators of the Netflix show raised questions about the convictions of both Avery and his nephew Brendan Dassey. Avery's attorney says they still have several options, including appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court. There is still no verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial. He's accused of shooting and killing 2 people during riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin over the summer. Rittenhouse claims it was in self-defense. The jury has been deliberating for more than 21 hours so far. The judge banned MSNBC from the courtroom after a freelance producer was stopped by police Wednesday night while following the jury bus.
This is a very serious matter, and I don't know what the ultimate truth of it is, but absolutely it would go without much thinking that someone who is following the jury bus, that is a very It's an extremely serious matter and will be referred to the proper authorities for further action.
Their parent company, NBC News, said that the producer never intended to have contact with jurors and the network is cooperating with authorities. Jury deliberations are expected to resume at 10 Eastern Time Friday morning. Police say that 8 students were unintentionally tased in Queens. Authorities say that 2 people fired a taser at a fence at PS 305, the Learners and Leaders School on Seneca Avenue in Ridgewood. As the kids were leaning on the fence, it was tased and they were shocked. The students ranged in age from 8 years old to 12 years old, 5 of them boys and 3 girls. Police say that they were taken to Wyckoff Hospital with minor injuries. All right, just in, some developing news from the state capitol in Albany. A select group of assembly members got a first look today at a long-awaited report into former Governor Andrew Cuomo. State House reporter Zach Fink, fortunately in studio with us today. Zach, we've been waiting for this report for a long time. What are we hearing?
We really are, and we're talking just mainly on sources now, Angie. But this is the Assembly impeachment report. The investigation was begun back in March, and it focuses on several different avenues: nursing home deaths and whether or not they were underreported, Cuomo's lucrative $5 million book deal — he wrote a book in the summer of 2020 that was published later that fall — and whether or not state resources were used, and also focuses on allegations of sexual harassment. We are told that it backs up the claims from women made and originally written out in the report from the Attorney General back in August. But it focuses on 2 specific sexual harassment claims, one from a woman named Brittany Commisso, who is a former staffer who claims that the governor groped her at the executive mansion — that's the official governor's residence in Albany — and allegations from a state trooper of harassment. And this report really goes into a little bit more detail about those. But the biggest revelations, we are told, have to do with that lucrative book deal. And it claims in multiple cases that the governor tried to lean on supporters to buy the book to boost sales. We are also told that state resources were used in the compilation and writing of that book. Not only actual resources, including government property, but those who were employed in a government capacity. The Cuomo administration had assured JCOPE, the state ethics watchdog group, in getting approval for the book, that no state resources would be used. It seems clear, at least according to the judiciary report, that it was done on state time. The report itself is succinct. It's only about 45 pages, and initially this was an impeachment investigation. However, once the Attorney General's report came out in August, the governor announced a week later that he would resign. That focused only on allegations of sexual harassment. So the Assembly, which hired an outside law firm to prepare its impeachment report, dropped the impeachment aspect of it because it was no longer necessary because the governor had stepped down. But then there was public pressure to at least release some kind of final report detailing its findings. Some of the witnesses did not cooperate with the Assembly. The governor himself did not sit for any interviews. So we are expecting to get a glimpse of this report either tomorrow afternoon or on Monday, Angie, but the plan is to make it public.
Are we going to hear anything from former Governor Cuomo about this?
I think there's no doubt, given his track record since his resignation. Certainly he and his lawyers have been very vocal in denouncing the Attorney General, saying that's a political witch hunt. I suspect we'll see more of that with this, Angie. It's just getting harder and harder for the governor to claim that because he's basically insinuating that there's a grand conspiracy between the Attorney General and all the members of the legislature who called for his resignation, all of whom are Democrats.
And so I know that the impeachment part of this was dropped, but because he's no longer governor, where can they exactly go with this?
So the report really isn't going to do much more other than kind of validate, number one, what the Attorney General report said with claims of sexual harassment, but it also looks at these other avenues. My understanding is that there are multiple violations of the public officers law, which could be prosecuted. So there are several law enforcement agencies, we're told, that the Assembly is sharing this information with. So the Assembly wouldn't launch a prosecution, but a district attorney could.
All right, Zach Fink, thanks so much.
Thank you.
The Biden administration is set to buy 10 million treatment courses of Pfizer's COVID antiviral pill if regulators approve it. The White House announced the nearly $5.3 billion deal on Thursday. Pfizer has submitted the pill, which is named Paxlovid, to the FDA for emergency use authorization. The drug maker says that the pill can reduce the chance of hospitalization and death by up to 89% in people at high risk of severe illness. The FDA will hold a public meeting on November 30th to consider that drug for authorization. The mayor announces that the city workforce is now 94% vaccinated. 92% of EMS workers are at least partially vaccinated. Firefighters are at 88%. The NYPD and the Department of Sanitation are each at 87%. It's been a few weeks since the mandate on city workers went into effect. Meanwhile, the governor says that more than 80% of adults in the state have received their COVID shot. As we head into the holidays, the positivity rate here is 1.47%, a slight increase from Monday when it was at 1.41%. Health officials have said that large family gatherings could lead to a spike, but with more than 12 million vaccines administered, hospitalizations remain low. Mayor Bill de Blasio gives his strongest hint yet of an upcoming run for governor, announcing a statewide education initiative that would keep kids in school year-round. Appearing on MSNBC, de Blasio says that he's going to travel across the state to push for a plan that would offer free extended day and all-summer education to those who want it. The initiative would be paid for through a tax on the wealthy.
The school year doesn't fit the reality of families, and therefore middle-class people, working-class people struggle to find a way. How do you have a school day that ends at 2:30 or 3 o'clock when parents don't get out of work till 5? How do you have a school year that ends in June when, in fact, kids need options all summer long?
During his daily briefing, the mayor again refused to say whether or not he is indeed running for governor, but he did urge supporters to go to his website, which does include a tab to donate. Governor Kathy Hochul is pushing for more workers to return to the office.
How about this New Year's resolution? That in the days after New Year's, that we say, everybody back in the office, you can have a flex time, but we need you back at least the majority of the week. Come on back, New Yorkers, we miss you.
The governor adds returning to the office is essential to both the city and state's economies and will help fuel recovery from the pandemic. And the governor also said that she plans to work with Mayor-elect Eric Adams to address crime, gun violence, and homelessness. There is a push to get more federal rent assistance. Top Democratic lawmakers in the state Senate and Assembly are urging the Biden administration to approve nearly $1 billion in additional funds. Albany already has distributed more than $1 billion in support to more than 81,000 landlords. The state eviction moratorium was pushed back until January 15th, but with rents rising, lawmakers are worried that a crisis over affordable housing could get worse. Democrats on Capitol Hill continue to plow ahead with the second part of the president's massive domestic agenda. But an internal dispute has erupted over an issue dear to many residents in states like New York. It's the cap on the federal deduction for the state and local tax payments. Eric One's Kevin Fry reports from Washington on the latest negotiations. Eric Adams loves burning the candles at both ends, so to speak, but the mayor-elect insists that his after-hours activities isn't him just having a good time. Adams says that he's not only trying to make the city better for those who play after dark, but also for those who work after dark. Our Emily No caught up with Adams and filed this exclusive report. CVS plans to close 900 stores over the next 3 years. That amounts to roughly 10% of the company's retail footprint. CVS says that the closures are a result of a changing consumer buying pattern that they're seeing. Affected employees are going to be offered jobs at nearby locations. It is not yet known which stores will be closing. As companies across the country report labor shortages, a job fair at Madison Square Garden saw a massive turnout. Several thousand people came in hopes of landing new employment. Eric One's Arnold Davik was there and has this story. Student workers at Columbia University are on strike. Their union of more than 3,000 members makes up one of the largest student worker unions in the entire country. Eric One's Edric Robinson reports from Morningside Heights. One of the city's most famous holiday markets is back open. The urban space Union Square Holiday Market has more than 150 local and national vendors. Visitors of the outdoor European-style winter market can expect to see a variety of global cuisines, original art, and handcrafted accessories from local crafters, artists, and entrepreneurs. There are a variety of food vendors as well, and one vendor who makes and sells her own jewelry tells us it's great to be back after missing last year due to the pandemic.
This is where people should come this holiday season. Support the little businesses that made it. You know, we're a little bit smaller this year. There's less people here. And we need New Yorkers to come and spread the love and support the small businesses. Because we survived. We survived the pandemic.
The market will be open daily through December the 24th. Macy's holiday windows are unveiled at its flagship store, and Santa is going to be there to meet customers this year. The display will remain up until New Year's Day. There is also going to be an in-person Santa Claus in Santaland this year after there wasn't one last year due to the pandemic. But you are going to need to make a reservation and wear a mask if you plan on seeing Santa. There's going to be social distancing, but your kids can still tell Santa what they want for Christmas and take a photo with him. A blue reindeer named Tiptoe is taking center stage in the display. The window tells a story of a reindeer that's too shy to fly with Santa's sleigh on Christmas night.
We're so excited that we can bring this tradition back to New York and back to Macy's Herald Square. It's such an important part of so many families' holiday traditions. So we're just so excited that we can bring this joy back to New York, back to the city, and really celebrate the holidays with all of New York City.
You don't have to wait long. Santaland opens the day after Thanksgiving. Kids can also experience the magic from home at Macys.com/Santaland. New Jersey Transit is adding buses and trains over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Early rail and bus service is going to start on Wednesday and will provide extra service to Newark Airport. There's also going to be extra service on Thanksgiving morning and afternoon for passengers that are going to and from the Macy's parade. Extra bus service is also going to be offered to shopping centers throughout New Jersey on Black Friday. The Port Authority is discussing a new fare payment system for PATH. It would be similar to the Omni system for subways in that it would allow passengers to use debit and credit cards to pay their fares. But it will also continue to support a PATH fare card for those who would prefer to pay that way. The new system will begin in mid-2023 and should be fully deployed by the beginning of 2024. Toll rates for cars and trucks and PATH fares are going to remain unchanged in 2022, but the cost of a single air train ride is going to go up from $7.75 to $8. There's a new taxi in town, and it's Revel Blue. Revel, the electric scooter operator, shifted gears over the summer with a taxi business, despite objections from the city's Taxi and Limousine Commission. New York One's transit reporter Dan Rivoli has the story. The Department of Transportation is giving out free sandbags citywide. It's part of an effort to mitigate the effects of storm-related flooding. It also fulfills a commitment made by the mayor. Sandbags are available free of charge for homeowners and renters. People we spoke with say that they're grateful for this giveaway because they really do use them.
Last time storm, I checked my basement. A lot of water in there, so I spent the whole day to clean up. So I really need the bed of sand to protect the water going in my basement.
I would recommend any place you have like a doorway that's low lying. I would block the doorway with it to try to keep the water from flowing under the doorway. Build like a small dam, a little or a dike kind of thing to stop the water from flowing under your door, garage door, or your basement door.
On Friday, they're going to be giving out sandbags on the Manhattan side of the Williamsburg Bridge. The goal is to distribute 10,000 of them by the end of the week. New York is among the states that have seen extreme weather events in the past decade. The infrastructure bill that President Joe Biden signed spends billions of dollars on addressing future storms through increased resiliency, and Democrats are calling for even more spending on such projects in another bill. Our chief national political reporter, Josh Robin, takes a look at resiliency and why projects aren't always done on time, despite the risks of inaction. That's all for this half hour news. Up next, New York One Live at 10, hosted by our very own Cheryl Wills.